Welcome back to Buy or Sell, the series where you pitch me your predictions for the theme park world, and I either buy or sell them and explain why. If you want your idea considered for the next video, leave a comment below starting with buy or sell. In this episode, we look at the future of 300-foot inverting coasters. What could replace Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket? And if the Top Thrill Snafu will change Cedar Fair's future with Zamperla. This is Buy or Sell, episode 30. Let's start with Brett Clouda. A major park in the US will get an inverted launch coaster in the next 5 years. The launch inverted coaster trend started with Volcano. Then we got a whole bunch of impulse coasters, but those have really died off. I'm buying this for one reason and one reason only. Storm the Dragon Legend at 2's. This Gerstlauer opened in 2023. It's a very compact and short ride, using a multi-pass launch to extend the ride time, and it's got some crazy forces, including great inverted airtime. I think some park in the US will buy this. Six Flags and Gerstlauer may be on each other's blacklist. Cedar Fair is about to merge with them, but if they get their way, I could see this being a perfect fit for Valley Fair. They have an impulse, but they need something else with inversions. This is the small-scale thrill coaster that has their name written all over it. I could also see this at a SeaWorld park. It seems like it would be a good fit at all three of them, especially San Diego. They could even build one under 30 feet to comply with their height limit and not need a waiver. Those are just a couple options. This could honestly fit in most parks. Coyote, a Giga with an inversion gets built in the next 10 years. Up to this point, everything over 300 feet has stayed right side up. All of those B&M Gigas, the Intamin Gigas and Stratas. And of course, Falcon's Flight has 2.5 miles of track and still can't fit it in a single inversion. I'm buying this because of the B&M dive. These just keep getting taller. Yukon Striker hits 245 feet. You gotta think, it's not just possible to give one a 300-foot drop, it's probable. Apparently, this was an option on the Kings Island League survey, so it seems very much on the table. This seems like the easiest way to do it, but you could see something else. Hyperion has a 269-foot drop in one inversion. If we see Intamin make another Giga at some point, they could toss in the same dive drop element. So, there aren't too many options out there to get it done, but I think someone's gonna do it. Florian K06. We will never see another S&S 4th Dimension coaster. Ever since S&S acquired Arrow's catalog, they had two buyers for this model, Fuji-Q Highland in Japan in 2006 and China Dinosaurs Park in 2012. It's not great that we haven't seen one in 12 years. We saw 3 in the 10 years between X2 and Dinoconda, but this model is still listed on the S&S website. I would say that I don't see why some park somewhere doesn't buy one, but the fact is, it's been 12 years and it just hasn't happened. Then, you add on the problems that S&S is having with their coasters, and that may make people shy away from their entire catalog. This is all very pessimistic, but the question is, will we never see another 4th Dimension coaster ever again, and I'm selling that. As long as S&S is still around, and as long as they're willing to manufacture and sell this model, I think at some point someone buys it. We've seen dead models come back to life. The Chance Hyper GTX went a full decade. The Vekoma Tilt has gone over 20 years. The Intamin Impulse Coaster resurfaced after 18 years. And I doubt the next one we'll see will be in the US. But we haven't seen the end of the S&S 4D. Alex Wilcoxon. Six Flags New England is destined to the lower tier of the Six Flags chain. This is a sad one to consider, but I can see it happening. I'm buying this. When I first started making videos of the future of Six Flags 5 years ago, I was optimistic about this park. Between 2011 and 2017, they added 4 coasters. That brought them up to 12, now down to 11 because Goliath closed. When you look closer, of those 4, 2 were relocations, 1 was an RMC conversion, and 1 was a basic clone. Maybe not the best additions, but a lot more than other parks were getting. We also need to consider what kind of park this is. It's not very big, it's not in a big metro area. Half hour from Hartford, 2 hours from Boston, 2.5 from New York City, and they got competition all around. This place has small park vibes, and it was being treated like a second-tier park. Based on the way the last 7 years have gone, I think it'll be considered the top rung of the lower tier, very much on par with Six Flags St. Louis. Thrills have a beard. Top Thrill 2 makes Cedar Fair stop working with Zamperla, just like RMC and Intamin. This is probably the biggest story of 2024, the re-emergence of Top Thrill Dragster as Top Thrill 2, removing that powerful hydraulic launch, now using an LSM swing launch, using a 400-foot back spike to complete the course. And even though Intamin has plenty of experience making coasters just like this, Cedar Fair went with Zamperla. If you know Zamperla's coasters, they're generally pretty small. Only a few of them use a launch, and they're more known for the great flat rides. It's been well publicized that Cedar Fair has a rocky relationship with Intamin, and for that matter, RMC. They don't like being burned by their manufacturers, so if you work with Cedar Fair, you better bring the good stuff. Well, 8 days after opening day, Top Thrill 2 goes down for extended closure. The official line was a modification to the ride's vehicles, and apparently, it's good they caught the problem before it got worse. The problem affected all 3 trains, so there was obviously some design flaw given the speed and the forces of the ride. Zamperla's team came to the park and are looking to fix the problem. Tony Clark said this is not a summer-long problem, so they're optimistic about getting it reopened. They started retesting it in late May, so it's obvious Zamperla thinks they fixed the problem, and now we have to wait and see if that's the case. These problems seem to surface after a lot of test runs, the media day, and the first week of operation, so they probably won't know for sure if everything is fine for a while. For now, I'm selling that this causes Cedar Fair to stop working with Zamperla. However, I think it's still up in the air. If this fix turns out not to work, and Top Thrill 2 becomes nothing but a money pit and a paperweight, there's no way Cedar Fair turns to them for future large-scale projects. I'm going to have faith in Zamperla. Despite this initial snafu, their engineers can learn from their mistakes and make it right. It's also possible at this point that Canada's Wonderland's new coaster is Zamperla, so that adds another level to this story. Zamperla is on thin ice, and they have a lot to prove in the coming months. The Pirate Princess 23 and Immelman, Viper at Magic Mountain will be torn down or get a major refurb in the next few years. Viper is the little engine that keeps on going, and it's obvious that Magic Mountain is taking good care of it, but up to this point, that falls short of giving it a complete overhaul. I'm talking about the Premier Ride's Loch Ness treatment, replacing 1,000 feet of track or more, or something like Blue Hawk, minor track work but getting a new train. We haven't seen any of that, but I'm buying that we won't stay with the status quo much longer. On my Premier Ride's Loch Ness video, trying to find other contenders for the same treatment, I left out Viper on purpose. I don't think Six Flags is going to go that far, at least not yet, but I think they'll give it a new train, one of those great Vekoma Vest trains. I bet that would put a giant band-aid on the ride's problems, and they can deal with the rest later. If not, they probably are looking to end its tenure at Magic Mountain, this outlasting every other Aero Mega Looper by 15 years now. Maybe they've been holding off because they plan on scrapping it soon. I'd be very surprised if in 5 years it's still operating as it is right now. Raymond Buster. Based on Voltron's success, we start seeing more Mach Striker coasters. Voltron just opened about a month ago, and it looks like Mach Ride's most complex project ever. This has a ton of moving parts, a turntable, multiple launches, a switch track, and this covers over 4,500 feet of track and has 7 inversions. It looks awesome, and I think it's the best looking coaster opening in 2024, and its future depends on how reliable it is. We already know that Austria's Fantasiana is getting one in 2025. They just went right for it without seeing how Voltron does. But I bet the rest of the industry has their eyes on Voltron this year. I'm buying that the Striker coaster will become popular for bigger parks, especially in Europe and Asia. Mach Rides has a good track record, and even though this is going out on a limb even for them, this has a lot of appeal, and I think it's Mach's next big winner. Dabby DeVito. Knott's Berry Farm removes Coast Rider for a Wild Moose. Coast Rider is a Mach Rides Wild Mouse that opened in 2013, and even though it looks pretty on the boardwalk, I don't think this coaster is going to be around for the long term. Still, I'm selling the idea of a Wild Moose replacing it. I thought it was possible to replace Timberline Twister with a Wild Moose. That actually seemed like a perfect fit and something I thought could really happen, but they got a Zamperla family coaster instead. I think Knott's can replace Coast Rider, but if they do, look out for a Vekoma family boomerang. Cedar Fair just bought one for Kings Island. It's a tried and tested model. It's family friendly just like Coast Rider. It could fit on that plot of land. It just seems like the perfect candidate. Fantastic. Canada's Wonderland's new coaster will be a new generation Vekoma. I want to give credit to Amusement Insiders for covering this project so extensively. So if you're interested in all the rumors and updates on Canada's Wonderland's new coaster, check that out. Here's what I've learned so far. It's going to be a launch coaster. It'll be between $38 and $50 million. It'll be set within and around Wonder Mountain, and 3 manufacturers are in play: Zamperla, Intamin, and Premier. That being said, I'm selling Vekoma. It doesn't seem like they're in play. As for those other 3 manufacturers, there's a lot going on there. Cedar Fair has never bought a Premier Rides coaster. They inherited the Backlot Stunt coasters, so they have that relationship in place, but never actually bought anything from them. Intamin, last I checked, was not on Cedar Fair's good list. I mean, just within the last 2 years, they chose Zamperla over Intamin for Top Thrill 2. I don't think Cedar Fair has bought a new Intamin since I-305 in 2010. Then, of course, you got Zamperla. We already talked about that relationship. They could very well have landed this project, and maybe Cedar Fair is stuck with it no matter what happens at Top Thrill 2. Regardless, this sounds like an awesome coaster and a huge investment. Spider Waffle. Universal replaces Rip Ride Rocket with an SNS 4D or a Mach Extreme Spinner. The last year, the rumors of Rip Ride Rocket's demise have been running hot, and even though I've always loved it, I can totally see it being torn out. It's already 15 years old, it's had a good run. Most people have negative things to say about it. Universal is loading up with amazing new state-of-the-art coasters, and Rip Ride Rocket is kinda old school. We talked about the 4D coaster, and even though I can see it coming back at some point, I don't think it's coming here. I'm buying this for the Mach Ride's Extreme Spinner. This seems like an awesome plot for a coaster like Ride to Happiness. A launch spinning coaster. They can theme it to whatever they want, enclose some of it. And this is Universal. They have some of the deepest pockets in the entire industry. They can afford it, no problem. It can use the same linear plot. It can go over footpaths. It would be a good extreme replacement for their one extreme coaster. It just makes too much sense. I'd be sad to see Rip Ride Rocket go, but if we can get a Ride to Happiness style coaster here, I'd be down for it. Cat 1234. One mid-tier park in the Six Flags chain will move to the upper tier by 2030. We already talked about New England going in the opposite direction. Now, let's see if anyone can rise up. Right now, the top tier is set in the country's 3 biggest metro areas. Magic Mountain for Los Angeles, Great America for Chicago, and Great Adventure for New York. I think the middle tier is made up of 6 parks. Let's start at Discovery Kingdom. This park doesn't have a chance. If anything, it's in danger of falling to the lower tier. Over Georgia and Mexico are both in big metropolitan areas, but I don't see them moving up or down. Of course, there's New England. You know what I think about that. That leaves the 2 Texas parks, and I think both of them have a chance. Texas is growing like crazy. Over Texas serves the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It has a ton of land. It's set right in a big complex where the Rangers and Cowboys play, and it has top-tier potential written all over it. Still, weirdly, up to this point, Six Flags doesn't treat it like a top-tier park. It's been much kinder to its neighbor to the south, Fiesta, Texas, being in another growing city, San Antonio, but this seems like it belongs to the middle tier. Despite that, some people may argue this is currently a top-tier park. I'm gonna buy this because of the 2 Texas parks. After the merger, it's possible the new chain focuses on one of those 2 parks, especially over Texas, and they make the investments to elevate it into the top tier. Froggy L. At least one of the 4 remaining Den coasters will be closed by 2032. There were 10 Den coasters to start, and there's only 4 left, so let's look at all of them. Predator at Darien Lake. This has been getting a lot of track work, more and more of it becoming steel, so it's obvious they want to keep it. If they were going to tear it down or RMC it, they would have done it by now. Wolverine Wildcat at Michigan's Adventure has the same story. It runs rough, but they've been putting Titan Track on it, so it's obvious they want to keep it around for the long term. Timberwolf at Worlds of Fun is perhaps in more danger. About 6 years ago, they redid the last turn to make it smoother, but they haven't made any recent major upgrades. This one's less stable, but unless Cedar Fair wants to spark up their relationship with RMC, this is probably safe. Last one, and in my opinion, the best one, Thunder Run at Kentucky Kingdom. This has a really good first half and gives a smooth ride, but I think this is in the most danger. Now that this park is run by Hershend, they could pull the plug and replace it with something new. However, they did just close T3 and we'll see what ends up in that plot. So they're probably in no hurry to close down and replace another coaster, especially one as good as Thunder Run. I'm selling this. All 4 of these parks are on the smaller side, parks less prone to rotating out their coasters. The other Dens were at parks like over Georgia, Magic Mountain, Cedar Point, over Texas, so that makes a bit more sense. 8 years is kind of a long time, and maybe Timberwolf or Thunder Run don't make it that long, but I'm still betting on them staying. That's a wrap on episode 30. Let me know what you think of any of these topics, if you agree or disagree, and why. Also, don't forget, if you want your idea considered for the next video, leave it in the comments below, starting with buy or sell. Before you go, don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new here and love coasters, please give me a sub. I have a playlist with all the buy or sell episodes. Also, check out my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel if you also happen to love baseball. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.